Hi everyone, delonewolf here and welcome back to the Sunday recap, my weekly vlog where I talk a bit about my last week in games. And as always, we'll start with EVE Online, and I would say that I spent an average amount in EVE Online, maybe a touch less than that because I did get started on a new project as well, but my new routine is starting to bear fruit. As you guys know, I was ISK positive on the wallet for the first time since the new wallet was introduced, so that was very cool, and it is of course thanks to a focus on industry and on some trading. So every single day now I try to produce items and then I try to bring them to the right market. That can be in detail, but that is of course the smallest and the slowest market for stuff to move. So I do have to do an almost daily trip to a trade hub, either Amar, which is not that far from detail, or Jita of course, which is by far the largest market where stuff moves more quickly than in any other place in EVE Online. So that's what I'm doing on a daily basis at this point. After I do that daily little trip, I try to do a little bit of exploration. That's what I've been doing in the last week or so. On 2 occasions I got really good drops, like 68 million in one, and then another one, I'm not even sure what the amount was anymore, but I think like 4 pieces dropped from 4 out of 10. There is quite a bit of competition in the last couple of days. I did notice quite a few healers that were exploring as well, competing for the 4 out of 10, so people want that exploration ISK, and I fully understand it. It's actually pretty bonkers. The prices that I sell the faction pieces for are pretty much always 20-30% higher than the average prices that the system gives you, so these are super expensive and worthwhile at the moment. I'm really surprised by how much of a return I'm getting from exploration, even on like what I would have considered medium-sized drops before, and that's basically what's also funding my my industry activities and of course my positive ISK wallet as well, because what I try to do is to take a couple of the better pieces from last night's exploration with me on my daily trade trip, and that way I always do try to sell quite a little bit more than the minerals that I purchase back and that I then bring back to turn into more goods. At the moment the missiles are still absolutely dominating my industry activities. They have a massive return just on the estimated values from the minerals you put in and then the missiles you put out, but there as well we have a markup in Jita at the moment for most Tech 1 minerals that is pretty sizable, and I think that with these videos that will get plugged at some point because it is very accessible. It is the industry that I would definitely recommend to any newer players to get into, because the BPOs don't cost that much. It doesn't take very long to fully upgrade them, and then you're working on the same margins as everyone else, and that is of course very handy. I'm going to continue on that same vein, but I'll probably try to explore other options for industry. Of course, once you go to something else than munitions, we're talking about larger sizes as well, and so then bigger transport ships may be needed, maybe a freighter. We'll see how it works out, but that is what I'm going to continue to do for now. When it comes to the development of EVE Online, we know that next week we'll enter the first quadrant, flight or fight. So that's going to be a PvP focused quadrant. We still have no idea how CCP plans to handle all of that, but it should be rebalancing, changes to the game, possibly events as well that focus around a certain team, and so it's going to be PvP for the first 3 months of EVE Online normally. Well, let's bring it CCP. I'm really curious what you're all planning to do for EVE Online in the upcoming weeks and months, probably between now and FanFest basically. Next up we have a new project that I started, and that is a revisiting of the Elder Scrolls Online. To my surprise, from time to time there's still people that watch my Elder Scrolls Online videos. These are now years old at this point. We've got the Morrowind expansion where I played through the main story, and then we have, well, the base game that I bought at some point, which gives an enormous amount of content. I have to be honest, it is pretty damn big, and I wanted to try something else, so I'm working on an Elder Scrolls project that is going to fill, I think, most of the month of February. If I can maintain my my pace in the Elder Scrolls Online at this point. And so what I decided to do was to buy the new expansion, or the latest expansion I should say, the Elsewhere expansion, focusing on the Khajiit homeland. We've got dragons involved, we've got necromancers involved. It's also the new class that you can potentially play there, so we'll explore all of that. I'll try to see how much fun I can get out of ESO and try to cover that progress as well as possible. And that's basically going to be not a quadrant like in EVE Online, but probably like a monthly thing where I focus a little bit more on one extra game next to EVE Online. So that's something I'm gonna try to do. I'm fully working on that at the moment, and I'm absolutely enjoying my time in the Elder Scrolls yet again. For an MMO, it is pretty amazing. The atmosphere for me does work. I don't feel like I'm forced to go into MMO mode where I need to grind, get to the highest level, get the best ability, use only the best and strongest classes, get the best gear. All of that pressure doesn't really exist for me in the Elder Scrolls Online. I focus on doing some quests, exploring some stories, just enjoying playing a character with all its problems, its flaws, and potentially some of its strengths as well. So and the story here so far is pretty formulaic, what you would expect. Of course, it is still an MMO, it has some limits, but I am personally very impressed with my experience in the Elder Scrolls so far, and actually look forward to continuing more of that and to share all of it with you guys in full detail. The dragons are pretty cool from time to time. There's some of them that fly around, and then you can engage them in certain places. You need like, I don't know, 2 dozen people to actually bring those down, but they quite often do, and then you clearly see it shown on the map that a dragon is engaged, so you can go over there and help, grab that extra loot, potentially some blue drops, which can help a newer player like myself out, of course. And it just breaks the pace that you can go at in the Elder Scrolls Online, which is just doing some story stuff. You can really take your time in this game, enjoy the experience, and try to play it basically as I would play a single player Elder Scrolls game as well. And just from time to time, well, in a tougher dungeon, if then there's 2 other guys that happen to do the same thing as well, you just blast through that. Honestly, that's pretty damn fun, and that is also, I think, how like a real Elder Scrolls world would work. It would not be one single hero. You'd have quite a few heroes or potential adventurers working their way through that world, and eventually you'll bump into some of them, do stuff together, which will make it all a lot easier. So yeah, I am absolutely having a lot of fun with the Elder Scrolls Online. We are going to continue that experiment at this point. I basically have 2 characters in like the level 10s with their ultimates, trying to explore things, and I'm working my way through the main storyline, which does take a decent amount of hours. So is it recommended? Well, honestly, for a buy to play MMO, it is just a massive amount of content that's available in the Elder Scrolls Online. Of course, I would perhaps wait for like a discount or something like that before I jump in on all the DLC, but it is really an amazing proposition for an MMO without a monthly fee. And that was my last week in games, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.